What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the Crane Kicks Lex podcast. You're joining us after a couple weeks of results. We have Dylan here, of course, our mainstay, and then Kyle decided he could no longer just beach, and he's back with us. I know everybody's missed him. He's here again. Obviously, cooler version of himself. We got KP as the handle as opposed to just Kyle or just Kyle Piercy. So coming back radder than ever. Glad to have you guys back with me again. This is it feels complete now. We have our trio rejoined, ready to go.
Like Rush.
Megazord is there. Yeah. That
I
works
thought
too.
I thought the numbers in the last show dipped so horrendously, so I figured I'd come back and
Yeah.
help
We had to
save
beg him.
the show. No, I
We
missed
had
you
to beg him.
guys. Glad to get away on vacation, but it's good to be back.
I know Kyle's really just glad to be back because he got tired of seeing my graphics that I was just like whipping up. And he's like, look, I'm beaching right now. And I'm like, it's okay. I got this. I have a Canva account. It'll be just fine. And he's like, please stop making these. Just
I threw my phone into the
don't
ocean. I
know.
had to get a new phone, but otherwise, I handled it pretty well.
Stop being such an embarrassment. Yeah. So, which I mean, he hasn't stopped me yet from doing the Super League player profile graphic. I just keep using it because I'm like,
At this point.
I know. I was like, it's too late. We're already riding with this. We don't have a Kyle Piercy original. We just have to go with a Tyler acceptable. That's what that one is. Yeah, it's good. But yeah, Kyle, you've been doing all right, man. Like obviously you went to the beach. Anything else new?
Went to the beach. That was fantastic. No sunburns, which is good to report.
Oh yeah, it's always good.
Went to a wedding out of the state too, so we've been a little bit all over the place. Really trying to soak up all the international soccer going on right now. I know you two have been enjoying it just as much, and
Yeah.
it was kind of odd today that Tyler, I think you mentioned it first, where it's like, what are we supposed to do? I think last Wednesday was the same thing when it was. I want to say it was Roger, I think, from the Men in Blazers, and he was like, I don't know what to do with my life for 24 hours of no soccer. So that's kind of how it was today because the Euro, I will say, like, it's maybe it's always been like this, but it really has felt like it's dominated the sports cycle like a World Cup has. I mean, I know it's almost that level, right? It's like one peg below, but this one, for whatever reason, I think the matches have been fantastic quality.
Top
and
shelf.
For whatever reason, I feel like it's just dominating the sports cycle. Also, it's a pretty slow season anyway, but it's been fantastic to watch. And then you have Copa America, which is kind of like the upside down.
Yeah, it's like B-, Euros,
It's like it's also
chaos,
enjoyable for different reasons.
Yeah, it's true. It's it's got that chaos factor that you're just like, I gotta watch this just to see what wildness is gonna happen. Dylan, you're here too, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I kind of had I had a fun weekend in a way. I got to spend a lot of good time with my wife, which was really nice. But I also didn't feel too great. I have ulcerative colitis, so I struggle with that. And it was just kind of one of those days, 2 days on Saturday, and I wasn't feeling good when I was at the game. I was in a bad mood, and then the results of the game, the stuff was going on. I yelled some things that I'm not really proud of. I'm not upset about what I said. I'm just upset about how I said it. You know what I mean? I was a little bit crabby, so I apologize to anyone who was at the game and they heard me. I think my Philly dirtbag came out truly.
I texted you whenever I heard you yelling at the ref about one of the Omaha players smoking the block. And it's so funny because before we went, you're like, my sister-in-law's going. I'm going to be on my I'm going to be so chill. And then I'm like, hey, Dylan, I can hear you over at my section, man. That's what I love about it. You're like, whatever. She has to know who I am. She's part of the family. So let's go. We're all in.
Yeah, I did tell her going in, I was like, I'm kind of rowdy at games, so don't expect me to be quiet. I think she didn't expect me to get that way. I think like I don't know if I've ever watched an Eagles game with her, but that's kind of how I am during an Eagles game. So
Hey, I mean, what happens at Toyota Stadium stays at Toyota Stadium. I think everybody knows that. That's the social contract you write when you
I
enter
love
those
you for
doors.
that, Kyle.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. That's your alter ego for those 90 plus minutes. And then she can just wipe that from her memory and then just be like, oh, now you're normal, Dylan. It's
Yeah,
okay.
the swing arrow comes out at the games, but Dylan's just real everywhere else.
I love it. I love it. Sween arrow at the
It's like
game. That's good.
you all watch Severance? I think season
Yes,
2's coming
No.
out soon.
yes,
Yeah.
good show.
Dylan's Innie is a maniac who's,
Yeah,
just going nuts at a soccer match, and then
I
he
I
comes
do
out
kind
and
of I do kind of do that when I go into the games. I kind of lock in and I kind of have my own personality there. It is
then you
true.
come out and someone's like, "What was that all about?" And you're like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
It
that's
kind of
What do you
is like
mean?
that. Yeah,
I don't even know what you're talking about. I just
yeah.
blacked out for 2 hours.
I love it. That's so good. We gotta have that though. We gotta have that rowdiness there, and people getting into it. So I'm all for it. I love hearing you shouting from 2 sections away. That means that you're getting loud. You're getting ready. This it's I don't know. I want to backtrack a little bit. Kyle, you brought up the Copa America and the Euros stuff. I want to talk about that a little bit more because we've gotten a chance to text a lot about it, and I'm sure a lot of listeners or people watching have watched one or the other, or maybe both. Man, the other day with that match with Spain and Germany, that was just peak soccer. I loved that match. It was such a good game. It was that back and forth that you want, never knowing who for sure is going to come out on top. Although I kind of felt Spain might have it in them. I'm curious with you guys for the Euros at least, who you think is going to take it all because we're kind of down to the last little bit now. I think Spain has a pretty solid chance. Like everybody kind of is touting France as being able to beat them, but I don't know. I know Spain's going to be missing a few guys because they had yellow card accumulation against Germany, but they've got some serious ballers and like their newly revamped play style where they kind of get away from that tiki taka. It works a lot, but they still have that like core identity of like if we need to, we can go back and tiki taka you to death. I don't know. I don't know who you think has got this.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really hard to create tiki taka in international squads because of like how little time you have to create a game plan. You have to kind of play a pretty simple game in international games, and you have to like build off chemistry more so than anything. And I think Spain's doing a really good job of that with a really good young core of guys. And then you even look at their subs, like they subbed in Oriozabal, and that guy's just a baller as well. I really like his style of play. You know, it's always nice for me to see Kai Havertz blunder so many easy chances for Germany. I think that's just like, like a point for me, knowing that Arsenal paid way too much for him. So
Love the dig there. Kyle,
Yeah, I
who you
mean,
got?
well, I was gonna say it seems like Spain might be the only like it's almost like they've played super well, obviously, in that half of the bracket. I think everyone kind of knew when it came out was like, oh my God, this is like the gauntlet. But they also feel like the only team maybe that doesn't have a flaw that you can pick at, especially of the four remaining. You can kind of pick at, each team, whether it's Kylian Mbappe maybe not showing up quite as much as we expected from France, or England being England, like this whole tournament, just this kind of malaise about the whole team, and somehow they keep moving on.
Mhm.
And then I think the Netherlands had a really fantastic quarterfinal match, and so maybe they're kind of
Yeah.
getting back into the mojo a little bit. Fantastic match against Turkey, but at the same time, like they don't have the horses that Spain has. So I mean, it does feel like Spain's tournament to lose at this point. But and as Dylan said, the depth on the team is ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
at this point, I think there are a few teams, really any team, because you could even look at England and you're like, they could field a second 11. France could field a second 11 and
Mhm.
and make a run in this tournament. So I mean, it's not like Spain is unique in that
yeah,
aspect, but it just seems like they're getting the most out of all those players too, and it just frustrates crap out of me that they have like a 16-year-old starting,
I
you know,
know.
as well. And we're just like,
Mhm.
Just balling out.
I
Like,
mean,
oh
Yeah.
man.
unbelievable. It's just,
Yeah,
you know,
Yamal is crazy.
yeah,
16.
leads this tournament, I think, in assists, and it's just been fantastic. And then you bring
Mm-hmm.
in a fresh set of legs right on top of it, and it's another all class athlete. So
Yeah.
it does seem like it's theirs to lose, and just like watching. I know we probably don't want to talk too much about the U.S. men's national team, but like you watch Copa America and then you watch that like Spain versus Germany match, and it really does feel like different sports. Like you're like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're like this is
You're not lying.
it
Mhm.
feels so and it's hard to like explain to. I mean, I can't even find the words to explain it to.
I think it's just European. I think it's
Yeah,
just European.
it's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
level of quality, and like Uruguay is really nice, and I know that
Mm-hmm.
that was a match that they technically didn't, maybe didn't have to have in the bag as much as obviously as much as the Americans did, but at the same time, like even the top level teams in the Americas, there's still this like element of chaos where you're like, who knows, no idea, and
Yeah.
obviously Argentina have been to the mountaintop and in the last World Cup, and Uruguay is always shows up in these national tournaments or these international tournaments, but for whatever reason, this Euros has just been on a different level. And I also feel like you see more talent, like it's not as top heavy, whether it's
Yeah.
Turkey or an Austria or a team like that can you know that can come away with a victory at any given moment. Has a little bit of was it Greece in '04 that kind of made that run and
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
shocked the world. Like I feel like you didn't see that as much as maybe you do now, where the talent level just in the game itself is so crazy that like every team's going to have 5 or 6 guys that you're like, oh my gosh, he plays for in this Premier League team, and he's in the Bundesliga, and he's so
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty awesome to see.
Tyler, I don't know if you're like this as well, like I am, but in tournaments where I don't have like a rooting interest, I'm kind of just hoping for like something different to happen, something not the norm. So I am kind of maybe hoping for Netherlands to pull it off. That would be fun to me.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun for Uruguay to win too, as
I
opposed to
agree.
Argentina. You know, do you feel the same way?
That's what I love about these type of tournaments whenever I don't have an interest. Like once your dog's out of the race or you never had one to begin with, that's the most fun. I love rooting for teams, but I also like just sitting back and being able to like watch these types of games play out and not be like stressed about what's gonna happen. Although I will say if I have to watch one more game of England trying to just like get the advantage by lulling the other team to sleep so they can get a
Yeah.
goal, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like those have been super underwhelming to me. Like especially like their game against Switzerland. Like when it went into added extra time, I was losing my mind. It was so funny because even the commentators were like, "Why are we even doing this?" They're just kind of like walking around with the ball, waiting for PKs. So, there are some games where I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes that's an effective style of getting a result, especially out of a tournament. Clearly, it worked, but I love those battles, like what I was talking about with Spain and Germany, where it's just constant chess match, see who can overcome the other, and get what you need. But yeah, I'd like to see some interesting things happen out of this. I want a deserving team that played hard, gave exciting matches to watch out of both the Copa and the Euro, and I think that it could be really, really cool. And I think you make a good point. I think Uruguay has a pretty solid chance. I wouldn't be surprised to see them come away with it. I think a lot of people tend to sleep on them, and they
Yeah.
forget who all they have, and
Yeah.
then you see them playing, and you're like, oh dang, they have like some serious ballers that are there.
They're
So
kind of like a
I don't
cohesive
know.
unit too.
They are, and that matters. Like you said, it's hard to build that with national teams because they're not together as much as your club.
Hmm.
So if you can capture that, if you get that lightning in a bottle, you're going to make deep runs. You're going to win tournaments. So I'm excited to see how these play out. I'm locked in. Like you said, Kyle, it's been weird. It's like it's almost dominated the cycle so much more than normal. And I don't know if that's just our perception. I don't know if it's more coverage. I don't know if it's just soccer's growing so much where there's more conversation about it that we're noticing. But it's been really cool to see, and it's really fed my soccer soul during this little stretch. So it's been good. Been good. I like it. Well, we talked a lot about international soccer. Let's get back to local. let's jump back in here. Um, let's start with Super League. So we're not going to go super in depth with every single player because since we were last together, there's been a ton of signings. We're at what now? Are we at 20, 22? I lost track as of today. Yeah, there we go. So we got tons of signings coming. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a few more show up at some point. We only have 2 international signings. So, in my mind, we have some international spots that could be filled. So, we'll see if maybe that happens. But based on who we have signed, we don't have a ton of depth at the defense. So, if I was a gambling man, I would say probably defensive players coming our way to kind of round things out because we have a lot of attackers, we have a lot of midfielders, we have a lot of players that are coming in with experience with multiple different positions on the field, which is really cool to see. A lot of people that can play wing and wing back or play forward as well as a defender. It's kind of neat.
3 goalkeepers already too.
Yep, we have our third one as of today. All of them super impressive. Most recent signings today, both coming out of Danish top flight football, and a returner for UK, which is really exciting. I feel like we have our W League signings, of course, but it's really cool to see somebody that's I wouldn't necessarily say like homegrown, but a local name, right? Because she played college here. So we got Hannah Richardson coming back to us. Really recent career at UK. Did super awesome with the women's team there. And then Bridget Skiba is the goalkeeper, of course, that we just signed today. That was her teammate coming through. Got a plethora of players out there. A lot of them, a lot of exciting signings. Honestly, how are you guys feeling about, in general, the types of players that we've signed or the ones that you guys have gotten a chance to take a look at? How are you feeling overall?
Yeah, I think to me, I was talking to you all about this earlier, where the first few came in, and I was able to kind of keep up, keep tracking, and then eventually I was like, all right, we got to see this all on paper. So that's when I started to work on that like spreadsheet of kind of trying to put all the puzzle pieces together, and a lot of it is still unknown. It's almost like we were in January, ish of
Yeah.
23, when it was like we have all these names of these exciting players coming in, and we're seeing all the highlight tapes, and we're seeing all the what can be the potential, right? But you don't really know how it's going to all fall into place. But I will say that I like the not only the diversity in the type of player in terms of like their position, and you mentioned I think we're still a few players short defensively that we could find out about in the coming days, but not only diversity in position and skill set, and you've done a great job, Tyler, keeping us kind of informed of some of the high points of these players, but also the diversity in their experience, like not only where they're from regionally, but then just a playing experience. And that includes a lot of overseas experience as well, where, the Super League is great because it's going to allow for more stateside opportunities for players. But,
Hmm.
in the interim, a lot of these players had to go overseas to find competition. And a lot of the players that Lexington's landed have had a lot of success doing that. So, whether it's Corey Sullivan, who you mentioned, you can actually
Hmm.
play in FIFA, which is a
Yeah.
great note to bring that up.
That was
Um,
really cool, man. When I found that out, I was like, all right. And I like totally smashed the buy with the FET coins. I was like, let's get this. So
yeah,
I have my Corey Sullivan card sitting in my FIFA Ultimate Team bank.
yeah. So I mean, you have like those type of players with overseas, and even two of the recent ones with
Hmm.
Richardson and Skiba, who played together in Denmark,
Hmm.
but are American. So just a nice diversity of players, a few internationals on the team already, and that also could possibly increase too,
Yeah.
as the summer wears on. So very excited so far, Dylan. I don't know what your thoughts are, if anyone in particular stands out, but to me it was kind of just the collection and getting that feeling back again that we had before the first League One season of a lot of
Yeah.
possibilities. Now we got to figure out who falls into what place, and who's going to kind of step up.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think there's been like a nice wave of like, ooh, there have been some like more exciting than the others, or some like bigger names in there, and I think they did a nice job of sprinkling in the like um the players from the W League team as well, and that's been nice. I'm really excited to see those names uh, signed for us for the Super League team. I think that's a really awesome opportunity and shows what the club can be as a whole. We can be a feeder product. This is an opportunity to grow from the youth to the W League to the Super League. There is that opportunity. If you play hard enough, you get recognized. I like it all. I think it's fun. I think it's very exciting. Um, can't wait.
What I'm noticing too from this, that feels like, Kyle, you brought up the very first USL1 team and the excitement of like the unknown, bringing these players from all over the place and then seeing how they're going to mesh together. Something that really stands out to me, and I don't know if this has struck you guys or anybody else that's listening, it definitely feels like Michelle Rayner and Mike Dickey are putting together a team that they're hoping for some chemistry out of based on who they're signing.
Mhm.
Because doing these write-ups, obviously you have to do a lot of like deep diving into, who is coming from where, what their background is. And Kyle, you created that spreadsheet for us that tracks a lot of that stuff as well. We have a lot of players that have played with each other in the past in some form or capacity, had some sort of overlap somewhere along down the line. So just like a couple examples, we've got Courtney Jones and Julie Mackin. Both of them played for Greenville Liberty at one point, had crossover there. We, of course, have all of our W League players. They played together, got experience with one another. Our two signings today, Hannah Richardson, Bridget Skiba, they both played at the same club just last year. We even have some players that played at like Charlotte Eagles together. So there's a whole bunch of these like webs of connections that I'm noticing between a large amount of our players. And so you can't help but kind of think once they get actually put onto the field to play a game, that maybe that chemistry is already going to be somewhat built in. Now, obviously, not everybody's had past connections with one another, but even if you have like every single player has at least played with one other person out of the 11 that's out there on the field, things you would hope would be running pretty smooth. They'd have at least a little bit of familiarity with what they like to do, their style, and then you kind of add that and you get the sum of the parts included with what we're doing now in the preseason. Makes you feel like, all right, maybe we can hit the ground running. That's just kind of like my initial feeling on this, which it's really interesting to see that because there's a couple different accounts out there that cover women's soccer, and they've been like tracking some of the Super League signings and kind of prognosticating about who's going to be dangerous right off the bat and who's going to do what. And it's kind of funny because a lot of the teams that they're assuming are going to be just running away with the league, there are teams that are just signing these big names from all over the place. But then you kind of dig into the connections, and there's no connections between the players prior. So I think it's a very interesting approach that we're taking to try and build something that hopefully will have a really solid dynamic that maybe will give us the edge. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm feeling good about it. But well, I guess we'll see whenever the season actually pops off. And I know some of you guys listening, hopefully you were at the game this past weekend. I know I'm bringing up a little bit of a sore spot right now, but it was really cool getting to meet all of the Super League players that are currently here in market. They were out there, they were signing the schedule posters. If you went up to them, they were all like super friendly. They sign it, they talk to you. It was really, really cool. Stressed me out a little bit. Michelle Rayner, the women's sporting director, she caught me right as soon as I got there, and she starts immediately taking me to every single group of them and being like, "This is the guy writing the things." And at first, I'm like, "Wait, am I about to get beat up right now? Is that why you just did that?" I'm like, "Hold on a second. Wait, is this good or bad?" But no, they were all really, really welcoming, really, really cool. It made me feel good about the team that we're putting together from like a fan standpoint. Because everybody that's listened for any amount of time, and of course Kyle and Dylan, you guys know this about me. I'm a huge fan of players that are there for the fans. If they're there for ego, I don't really care about them. It's like, see, I don't care if you're Lionel Messi, if you're not there for the fans and you're just going to kind of be like, whatever, I'm here to do a job and get out, then see ya. But they all had great vibes. I'm more excited than ever to see them do their thing this fall. Really, I guess end of summer, but I hope that we have more opportunities for people to get a chance to meet them out and about. Of course, they were out for the 4th of July parade. They were downtown, and some people probably got a chance to meet them there. But it'd be a shame not to meet them at some point, because I think everybody would really, really enjoy the people that we've brought to the city, and feel like I do, that they're here and they're going to try and represent us well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Super League's coming. I'm psyched. I'm very psyched. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like that weird like wave I'm riding of the initial phase of everything or what, but I can't wait for it to get here. And obviously it's going to come with the stadium too.
Hey, Bart Scott, can't wait.
Bart Scott, can't wait. That's right. All right. Super League player profiles. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. Hopefully by the time that you're listening to this, I'll have out our ones about Hannah and Bridget. No promises. We'll see what happens. I try and get them out as fast as possible. And then if there's any others, of course, I'll let you guys know. But make sure you scope those out, share them, help people get to know our Super League players. That way everybody's ready to go whenever it's time to cheer for their names. And you don't have to just say, oh, yeah, number 9 is awesome. Yay. Like you'll know, oh, that's Bridget. Number 9 is really awesome. She's going to plow through everybody, blah, 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 right? Although I don't think Bridget's number 9.
Bridget's a goalie, so probably not.
No, probably not. But she does plow through everybody. I watched some of her film. When she goes after the ball, she just like takes everybody out and just is like, this is my ball now. And then just redistributes. It's great. Anyway, you guys will learn more about that now at some point. Let's talk into USL 1. Let's get there. Let's get it with the highs and the lows. Let's kind of do some combos. And last couple times that we've done an episode, I told you all that we probably won't do listener or viewer questions at the end. We like to kind of address them as they come up in our natural conversation. We did have a few, and they all kind of were in the same vein as usual. It seems like everybody always has like the same types of questions, which is good. It helps us kind of focus what you all want to know and what it is that you're wanting to talk about, because it's usually stuff that we want to talk about as well. Let's start out with our Greenville result. Okay, let's start with the positive. We beat Greenville for the first time, and man, did it feel good. Anybody that listens that is on Twitter specifically, that like kind of have a little bit of back and forth with Greenville fans. Brandon Mays, Gio Cañas, there's a few others out there. We're kind of like stirred up a little bit of a rivalry. Obviously, that doesn't tend to spill over into places like Instagram or Facebook, if that's where you're mainly following us from. But there's a lot of banter that goes on Twitter, and it felt so good to finally get that win over Greenville. And man, what a frustrating win. Like for us to get over them. They were so ticked that we managed to pull that off, and that we scored that goal early and held on to it for the remainder of all that time. Because, of course, we know Greenville, they bank on getting 90 plus like 15 or whatever to try and earn one back. It's always been the story. They get some ridiculous amount of stoppage time to get a last-minute goal, score on us. We cry, we regroup, and that's it, right? But it was good to get that win. How'd you guys feel after finally getting the dub against a team we've yet to beat?
Like, honestly, it felt pretty good. It felt like a good win, and it felt like a really big exhale of a win as well. We really endured a lot of punches during the match, and it felt like, finally we can breathe now that we won. And we, kind of felt like we got over like a big hump, we got the demon off of our back a little bit. So there was that. But there were a couple things that, weren't so great, though. We got to work on our clearances. That was a really big problem in the first half, especially, that they just need to get rid of the ball really cleanly. Like there kept being a lot of like pop-ups and just wasn't like cleanly out of the box. And it's like, all right, we just need to get rid of it, get it forward out of our way, and we'll reset from there. Kyle, what about you? How'd you feel?
Well, yeah, I mean, come away 3 points. It's hard, especially with the way the club's been playing. It's hard to nitpick too much. Right out of the gate, the Autist Diouf just doing things that he does that has just made him
absolutely
arguably the fan favorite. I mean, between him and Amal, I don't really Nico, just going back to guys from last year too, who've kind of carried
Yeah.
over to this year. Obviously, the goal scorers always usually get a lot of the credit, but man, the way that first touch he had on that goal that he scored in the second minute was just I want to say it was vintage, even though literally like our club has
It just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just vintage
Yeah.
youth, It was so
Yeah.
long ago, 2023.
Yeah,
But
right.
it brought back some great memories of the highs from last season, and in a lot of ways, in that bittersweet of like we haven't had maybe those highs yet this year, so we're still kind of waiting on those. But it was fantastic. I thought Mendez played a great game, obviously with the long ball assist.
It was nasty.
Yeah.
Like on a dime.
Yeah. So just a fantastic all around effort, from him. But in general, it's one of those, we check that one off the box as a Kentucky football fan, in holders of some of the longest losing streaks against specific teams. It's like it's good to get those off the ledger, so to speak. And so there's still a couple other teams in the league that I think we could that are next, but Greenville was one that, because of the online stuff and just kind of poking fun at each other, it felt great. And not gonna lie, not gonna apologize for winning. I know Dylan's not gonna apologize for winning. Tyler, I doubt
No.
you're gonna apologize for winning.
Never.
So
Won't do
Never.
it.
at the end of the day, we're not going to do it. If you came to this podcast for some apologies for winning, sorry about you.
No.
Won't get them here.
You're not going to get him here.
No.
We're going to take the 3 points and move on. So it was fantastic. It would have been nice to be a league match instead of a Jaeger. It was Jaeger Cup, right? Now I'm starting to get.
It was Jaeger. Yeah. They were one of our outside of conference or
right,
division opponents. Yeah.
And like I know in my mind that I know the players don't really know or care. At least I don't think. Not care in the sense of like they don't care about the game, but like
Right.
I don't think
they're going to play no matter what.
They're going to play their best no matter what, and it just seems like all of our good results come with this Jaeger Cup. So we better win this.
We're winning some type of hardware.
Yeah,
the only one that counts. We'll be the inaugural Jaeger Cup winners.
You're only as good as your last Jaeger Cup victory. So
it was a good enough performance too, where Amal and coach got accolades, for it.
Yeah, team of the round, coach of the round. Yeah,
both team of the round. There's those banners fly forever when you can hang those team and coach of the round banners. Some say the Jaeger Cup, it's like the community shield. It's the hardest to win, right? Like who needs the League Cup? We want to win. We want the Jaeger. That's what we came here for. And
especially when all the other teams decide to downplay it after we win it and be like, well, nobody wanted it anyway. And it's like, okay, whatever, man.
You're just sad you lost.
Everybody wanted that dope Jaeger Cup trophy at the end of the year.
Yeah, they do.
No, but it was good vibes. It's a team that, every 3 points is, it feels like it's, you're dragging it out, and it's never easy, but it's always again, not going to apologize for 3 points. So it's always fantastic.
And aside from like, even if you're disengaged from the online banter of it all, if you're a Lexington fan that follows the games somewhat since last year, you still have to know in your heart of hearts that Greenville has like rivalry vibes just because of the storylines with like the last minutes, theft of points from us on multiple occasions. And then Jamie Smith being the one that always drives home the dagger somehow, some way. It's like he has a personal vendetta against us. Maybe it's because I'm always bringing him up and he sees it and he's like, I'm going to show that guy. But I have to point out, okay, Modesto, we already talked about his amazing long ball to Ates, and Ates has that beautiful first touch, and the ball pops down and it clips off of Jamie Smith's heel and right back to Ates for him to score. Like when we were talking about joy, I had pure childlike joy in my heart in that moment, knowing Jamie Smith helped Ates get that goal after all the times he's tormented us at Toyota Stadium. And just in those final seconds of games where he manages to get a goal in on us and then ruin our hopes of getting some points or more points than what we actually end up with. So that was a moment where I was just like, okay, we broke the Jamie Smith curse. It reversed. It's back in our favor now. So it felt good, and it was a hard-fought win. It was. I don't know that it was a pretty win, but it was a win. and I don't really care how ugly wins are as long as they're wins. But man, it was a tough one. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but it felt very much like we scored that goal, and sure, we tried to score again, but it was also very much like a game of let's absorb pressure. And that style of play kind of stresses me out. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like I get a little like antsy whenever I see my teams be like, okay, let's just absorb from this point on, because if we think historically, we don't always have the best success rate when it comes to we have the lead. Let's kind of see if we can just hold them off for the remainder of the match. And I know there's a lot of people out there that would disagree with me and be like, well, yeah, but you got to preserve your points. You got to like make sure you handle them. But then all it takes is for one little slip up, and then there it all goes. And we've had that happen so many times that I've got a little bit of like, anxiety about that going down. So it was a really big relief to see us hold off like we did and get those 3 points out of this. Again, like Kyle, you said, it's Jaeger Cup. I would have loved to have some league success. But it kind of gets into this mode of, well, I mean, we got points in one of the competitions, and the competition that we tend to get points in, okay, I guess, let's do our thing and just kind of continue this on, which, maybe we can address this here before we move into the Omaha match a little bit. But we did have somebody ask a question. They were like, do we now just kind of go all in on Jaeger Cup? Do we go all in on Jaeger Cup and that be like the focus? Let's win the Jaeger Cup and let's do our thing. And I don't know, maybe you guys have different feelings or different answers to this question, but for me, I feel like going all in on league play is the same as going all in on Jaeger Cup. I feel like if you don't go all in all the time and try your best to present the best version of your team in every single game, it's not like a light switch where you can just be like, oh, league play, let's kind of rest our legs. Jaeger Cup, flip the switch, put out the main guys, the number ones that we want out there and get some points. So I feel like for me, to answer that question, I don't know. I don't know that there is in my mind such a thing as just focus on the Jaeger Cup. But I don't know. What are you guys feeling?
Yeah, that makes no sense to me, honestly, in the sense of like it's twofold. One is, who are these, and this might sound rude, who are these star players that were sitting in these cup matches, to like who's resting, who's playing so far above, what we could expect. Like, I mean, obviously we have our fan favorites, but it's not like we have guys who haven't struggled. I feel like everyone's had ebbs and flows, and so
Yeah,
I guess you could look at it
very
from like
interchangeable.
yeah, you could look at it from like a wear and tear, like maybe an age thing too. But the other part of that, and more importantly, is I think the schedule's still spread out enough to where it's not like we're running up against, Wednesday cup match, Saturday league match, Wednesday cup match, Saturday league match. Like a lot of times you see those domestic cups, with like Open Cup's a good example of that, with those midweek
Yeah,
matches. We're still
right.
getting, because they took away league games, we're still getting a very similar cadence of competition. So to me, if you were to rest anyone, if that's the argument, if you were to sit any players, it's just another week off of trying to get momentum going. So to me, I don't see any merit in it. And I'm not saying it's an unfair question. It probably is a fair question. I just think
Right.
for where the club's at right now, I don't
Yeah.
know, what kind of mentality you could have to be like, yeah, we'll sit back and in these league matches and put everything on the Jaeger Cup, or vice versa. I feel like because of the schedule, because of the relative lack of success, just in general, I still think you're full steam ahead, trying to come away with victories in either competition, and some of it too has to do with some injury, managing injuries and things like that too, where you might not have a choice at some positions.
And you bring up a really good point, because I think a lot of people that watch soccer, they see these other competitions in other countries, and they notice that it's very like tight scheduling. Like you said, Wednesday you're playing, Saturday you're playing, or Wednesday, Sunday, and so you're going from a cup competition immediately into league play, and then back into another league play game or another cup competition. Where ours isn't like that. Jaeger Cup's not set up that way. It's not as congested. It's following the same flow. So it's not like your players are necessarily being overexerted by having all this extra competition. It's just kind of built in. It's almost like if you did not call these Jaeger Cup matches, they would fit perfectly and you would never know they weren't part of the schedule. I mean, that's why so many people I think have trouble keeping track. Like, which is this? Is this a Jaeger Cup match or is this a regular league play match? Because there's not really anything that makes it stand out as something different besides just when you look it up on FOTMob and it says, this is Jaeger Cup. Surprise, Dylan, I don't know if you have any other thoughts or if you're just kind of in the same boat that we are.
Yeah, I'm kind of the mindset where, like, personally, I would rather be more all in on the season or like regular season league play. I would rather, like, obviously the points, it probably won't pan out, but like, I would rather win the league rather than win the cup. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I
not
agree.
saying we
Yeah.
half-ass the cup, but I think you can get more creative with, working things out chemistry wise there, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of use that as your playground, um
Mm-hmm.
and but really focus on league play. I think that's really more important to me, and I think that's more impressive. And I kind of feel like everyone plays harder in those matches too. I feel like Jaeger has a weird feeling to it, just
Mm-hmm.
a weird vibe. Like, it feels like a normal game, but like also kind of like a light beer in a way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yeah. I can
there's
see that.
Budweisers. This is a Bud Light. Kind of. I
Yeah.
don't know. So
And that's an interesting point you bring up because, like Kyle had said too, I don't think that the players view it differently effort wise, but you kind of start to wonder too, though, if maybe it doesn't seep into their heads a little bit that with Jaeger Cup, there's a much more finite window to advance out of a group and to go on to something more and to play more games versus like league play where you look at the league schedule and it's all spread out and you're like, oh, we have this many games left. It's okay. And then you look at Jaeger Cup and you're like, oh, we only have this many games left. We have to produce in. So maybe that's like some of the answer behind why we're seeing such better results in Jaeger versus league play, or maybe it's just chaos. Maybe the universe is just messing with us, and we're doomed to not be as good in league play as we are in Jaeger Cup matches. I don't know what the formula is, but I personally, I agree. I feel like Jaeger Cup's maybe the more experimental area, like you said, Dylan. And I feel like we've seen a little bit of that with our team too. I do feel like whenever we've rolled out new formations or new setups, it's been in Jaeger Cup, and sometimes that's because of injury. Sometimes that's because of red cards. So necessity has caused it. But also, you wonder, okay, well, maybe that's also part of the plan too. Is like, all right, this is a Jaeger Cup match. Let's see how this works for us, and let's take it back to league play, which I think we kind of saw. This is a good transition. I think we kind of saw that in our Jaeger Cup match with Greenville, and then when we come back to league play back at home with Omaha this weekend. I feel like we had a very similar setup. Maybe not necessarily personnel. We kind of switched some people around a little bit, but I feel like our general tactical setup was very much the same going into the Omaha match as it was with Greenville. And when you look at that, you start wondering, okay, did Coach Powell decide, all right, we managed to snag a point off of Greenville, who's been consistently top of the table this year, using this formation, using these tactics. Omaha, they're powerhouses. They score tons of goals. Can we do the same thing against them? And we got our answer. And unfortunately, it was a ginormous no. We cannot just reproduce that against any team in this match. But you wonder if maybe that was kind of part of the thought process. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it seems like it could have been. So this Omaha match, uh, it was rough. It was a rough match. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but for me, what made it so rough is that we beat ourselves. Like, I know a lot of people feel like whenever like fans or teams say that, they feel like it's a little cop out answer that you're not willing to give credit to other teams. I will give full credit. Like Omaha, they've proven they can score tons of goals. They've proven that they are a good team. They're a well managed team. Not taking anything away from Omaha's win. Not gonna, because they earned it. It is what it is. But we had a lot of errors and a lot of things that went down throughout the match, especially in that first like 3/4 of the match that I feel like kind of doomed us. Like it just was. And then we had to do a lot of digging to get out of that. So I don't know. What are you thinking, Dylan?
So, I honestly, guys, I don't think I can sugarcoat it any longer. Like, I feel like we have to, or like at least I have to start like saying people's names. Like I honestly think Ebby is a complete liability in on defense, and I think he's directly responsible for many goals that have happened this season, and he's directly responsible for that penalty kick, his complete blunder of running up the field into, two men covering him further and further up the field just led to an interception, and then, the ultimate penalty, and then the goal. And like, you just can't make those silly mistakes. Just pass the ball off. It doesn't have to be that hard. And then Liotti kind of looked like he gave up at some points. Like it really looked like he gave up, and that was really disheartening to see. And there's just not a lot of heart on the field. There's no communication. The captain's armband has moved around so much this season, like it's crazy. And injuries cannot be an excuse anymore. We have the roster. Like it's crazy. We have a really good roster. I would take our roster over last year's roster for sure. There's a lot of really good talent on this team, like really crazy good talent. But like, what is the tactical plan with this talent? Like, what is going on? Like, what's the formation? What's the gameplay? What are the guys supposed to be doing on the field? There's never anyone in the box for an attacking play. It's always some solo runner running up, and there's never anyone in the box for like a cutback or a cross. There's just complete like no attacking mind in this team, and it just feels like we have a jumble of a roster, and like all these players that don't quite fit in any like perfect position, and it's really frustrating. And then like, we had no physicality in the game. The Omaha is such a physical team. We had no physicality. Tate, who I thought was like our best player, had to be subbed off because he was getting physically dominated, and that was upsetting. But we have a really physical player, and we sent him to Miami, and he scored a goal in that game, and he was their man of the match. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, the decisions that are being made. And that's just, yeah. Kyle, what do you
I'm not
what do
sure
you
how to
think?
follow that. That was well said. There are a lot of frustrations. I think that fans could, listen to that and nod along and not have too many things to push back on. And I don't really know if I have anything to push back on either with what you said. I mean, the lineups to me just are strange and like disjointed, both in their consistency and then just the usage of players in specific positions, as Dylan alluded to. And to me, it's been a midfield issue. I feel like all year, in the sense of like no identity at midfield. At least I think that's, to me, maybe the most consistent issue. Defensively, it's been a struggle. Dylan mentioned that too with Ebby and Mendez. I know is coming back from injury. But you have this defense that has been super inconsistent, which plagued the team a bit last year, which doesn't bode well for my next point of maybe it's time to kind of return to a Kalen Fox, a voice that's been there for a while. Was an alternate captain, I think, last year, maybe not an alternate, but one of the whatever teams for signing, whatever you want to call it. And if it's just that kind of steady voice to kind of lead from the back, maybe there's a change that needs to be made there. Because to me, it's like Powell obviously has the relationship with Mendez from their previous stop, and Ebby came into the season, some of us thought would be a difference maker back there, and it just hasn't happened. And then it's been kind of this rotating door at the other center back position, depending on the match, and whether it's Uche or Chica or Fox. And it feels like, to me, there's just not a lot of consistency. It's hard to get guys into a rhythm, and unless you're one of a handful of kind of regular starters now, even those guys I feel like are moving around different sides of the pitch sometimes playing higher, sometimes playing a little bit further back, a little deeper. So I don't know. It seems very disjointed, and you would think by the first week of July we'd have some type of like, even a team that like in football can run the ball well. Like, hey, we can't pass it. We're really trying to pass the ball. We're mixing up different receivers. We got a few different quarterbacks, but we can run the ball, right? And even like a one-dimensional team is successful at something. And so like it's frustrating at this point to not even have that like that one-dimensional like, hey, well at least we know X, right? And it's just every match is like, well, who the hell knows what's going to happen, which is a little frustrating. I mean, obviously the other side of that coin is that, to Dylan's point, the talent is such that like you never feel like when you see the starting 11, it always feels like there's hope because you see these names, you're like, oh, like I've seen all these players at their peak, but something I told you all earlier, it just seems like this team, the whole is less than the sum of its parts, and that shouldn't happen in club soccer, not this point of the season, and it's been frustrating. So obviously the victory a couple weeks ago was step in the right direction, but like most things, it's a couple steps back when the class, like Union Omaha's just one of those organizations that I wouldn't even consider them like a peer. I would consider them an aspirant. Like that's something we should try to strive toward because the way they handle their business, and it's just not there for Lexington at this point. But I still think a lot of it is I hate using growing pains as an excuse. Now we're in year 2, but there are things that you kind of have to learn together, and that's where that kind of culture can come from, and it just takes time, I think. And I think fans and myself especially were expecting more results on the pitch this year than have come about, but we obviously are still rooting on the team and cheering them on. It's just it can be really frustrating when you've kind of put so much into it and then the results just aren't there. But
Yeah.
that's it.
And and you guys, I think you guys are speaking a lot of what a lot of fans are feeling. I get a lot of DMs after games, whether they're good or bad, being like, "Man, that was great," or "What the heck is up with this?" And I can confidently say this isn't just like you all saying these things. There are a ton of other people saying them. And I don't know if like the players, the coaches, the club notice it, because it's not quite as out there in the open sphere. Because I think sometimes people don't like putting that out there because, I get it. You don't want to come off just being like that person that's perpetually online complaining. Well, some people like that, but not everybody likes to do that whole thing, right? And so it's not anything other people aren't feeling. And you know me, even the darkest things, I'll do like the silver lining thing, but I'm not going to sugarcoat this either. When it comes to Evie, yeah, he's had some pretty brutal mistakes. I will say those momentary mistakes that he's had, around that he's had really good games. It's just he's had those momentary mistakes that have directly led to a goal, and I don't know that there's any way getting around that. And if somebody were to get mad at us for saying it, then I guess they're just not tuned into what's actually happening in the reality of the situation. And I'm no soccer coach, but I've told you guys privately that I feel like Ebby would be a much better midfielder or an outside back than playing center back. But that's just me, because I really do enjoy his style of play, his aggressiveness. And, you said physicality. I do feel like he was one of the more physical players. He was going up against Dos Santos a couple of times. Like he right down on the sideline where I sit, he was going shoulder to shoulder, winning the ball off of him. And Dos Santos is a big, big dude. So he did provide some of that physicality for us. But yeah, when we look at this broader picture of what's happening. And I know we're kind of straying away from just the flow of the game, but I think everybody listening probably is in tune with what occurred on this. It's hard to find silver linings at this point. And I know a lot of the new guys on the team and maybe the new coaching staff, they're not familiar with this whole thing and how I've gotten flack in the past for being overly positive, and everybody just thinks that I'm sprouting rainbows and saying everything's okay and everything will be, and it will be. But at the same time, this is coming from a place of love. like a love for this club and a love for wanting them to do better, and we need them to be. And the constant mishmash of people is only exacerbating the fact that we have zero chemistry. I had a couple people. That was another question that came up from two separate people. They asked, "Okay, what's holding us back? What is the piece that's missing?" It's not a player. I'm telling you, it's not a player that's missing. It's chemistry that's missing. And I think we've said this on this pod before. I told somebody, I think I even told you guys this. It's almost like somebody picked up FIFA Ultimate Team for the first time. They got a bunch of 91 rated players and just threw them all on a team and had zero chemistry. And they thought that they would go out and win games with that team instead of being like, oh, actually, it might be okay if I have like a couple of like 86 players and then I have like max chemistry. We're just not seeing the chemistry. I mean, we do a little bit more when we see our old guard out there. I don't think anybody can argue that. When you put some of our old crew from last year out there, the chemistry goes up pretty significantly, in my opinion, especially if they're used in efficient ways. We saw ways that they could be used last year that they could be used this year and it would work well. I mean, you can't really argue against the fact that like Nico was second in goals last year and now he's tied on the team for most goals. Like, me personally, and this maybe I don't have a leg to stand on. And this is not me like bashing coaching decisions, but at the same time, I don't know how Nico wasn't starting at the beginning of all this. I just don't. Like and there's other players that I could vouch for as well in this, and not even necessarily old players. Some of the new guys in here we've seen kind of rotated out, and it could have been like a rest thing, but it was like Jorge not starting this weekend when
Yes.
Jorge has been an absolute pillar on that left side. The dude has been the picture of consistency for us. Like he just is so good. I mean, yeah, of course he had that, double yellow the game, prior to that, but he's been so good. And then he's not out there when we go up against Omaha, who is one of the most stout attacks in the league right now. It's just a lot of mixing around, and experimentation is fine to try and figure out what's going to work. But Kyle, Dylan, you guys both said this. We're at a point in the season where we should no longer be like, we're building chemistry. We're building up what we're going to do as far as our identity. We should have an identity. We should have some sort of chemistry. And I think we saw a little bit of that lack of chemistry against Omaha. Dylan, you were at the game too. There were way more players than I would like to have seen that were getting super frustrated and just kind of doing a lot of throw your hands up in the air
Yep.
mid play.
Yep.
The ball's still moving and they're stopping and they're taking the time to look at a teammate, throw their hands up and be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what are you doing? You stop moving and the ball's still going. I need you to like handle that in the locker room, man. Like save it for after the game and give them all the crap you want. Now I need you hustling after that ball because they put 4 on us and they're about to put 5 if you don't do something. So it was a little disheartening to see that they weren't really playing for each other, and by like letting their frustrations overflow, they weren't playing for the fans. There were very few players out on the field on Saturday that I felt still had us in mind and were like, okay, I need to bounce back, get it together, and stay in the game for what we're trying to do. It was kind of like a 2/3 split, 2/3 frustration, 1/3 I'm still here and I'm still playing.
I think all three of us are really making really good points. Tyler, you're bringing up things that that I did not say, and I didn't think about from your perspective, and now I'm hearing it, and I'm thinking about it as well, and I'm nodding my head along as you speak, and yeah, Jorge like has to be in the lineup, and replacing Ebby, in my opinion. I'm gonna bring that home again, but we can. Like I don't want to sugarcoat it, and I got to tell it like it is. But I also like I'm still gonna be a fan at the end of the day. Like I'm still gonna be there. Tyler, you said it. Like I'm still gonna be going to the game. This Saturday. I'm gonna be there. But like this just comes with being a fan. Like sometimes I get to voice my frustrations, and this is what we're feeling right now. So like we completely hear you, other fans listening to this, I think Nico really deserves some attention. I think he's been playing like some of his best games lately. Like he's really starting to like get back into form. And Tyler, you're completely right. Like it just shows like why wasn't he starting from the beginning? It's crazy. And I think Tate as well also,
Mhm.
needs to be consistent in the lineup. There's just creativity with him on the field and the chemistry with him and Artez and Nico. Just them as a core offensive unit is like it's something, and you can see when they're on the field things happen.
Yeah, and I agree. It's uh, and there's no magic 8 ball for what to do to fix all this. You know what I mean? And we can all sit here and go round and round. We're not in those locker rooms. We're not professional coaches. And maybe we're just talking sideways out of our face. I don't know, but I feel like results speak for themselves, and it's kind of a bummer. And it, I'll say this. I told you guys earlier, if you look at our results on the whole, there's a website out there that doesn't split Jaeger and League One. It compiles it all together: wins, losses, draws, point totals. If there was no such thing as Jaeger Cup, and I don't know, this might make people hate Jaeger Cup or it's something, may have them get some type of way about it. If there was no such thing as Jaeger Cup and these were all just regular league matches, we would be eighth place. I will say that we would be sitting in eighth versus 11th, flirting with 12th. And so when I found that out, I got a little bit of weird confliction about the situation this season, because then it's like, okay, would I be feeling this intensely bad about the season if we were sitting in eighth place as opposed to 11th? Because as much as I tout the Jaeger Cup and us being the second best team in all of Jaeger Cup competition and then top of our division, it's still, like you mentioned earlier, Dylan, like it kind of hurts that in league play, we're not doing our thing. You know what I mean? Because I do feel like at the end of the day, everybody puts more stock in league play because of where the Jaeger Cup is so new and it doesn't have some like storied tradition to it where it's like we won this illustrious Jaeger Cup. It just kind of feels like a short form of the league format. So I don't know. That kind of bugs me a little bit. And I will get into this. We did have a kind of a tough question, and I'm not going to hide people's questions that they ask. This one's a little bit of a touchy one, so I'm going to handle it as carefully as I can. Somebody asked, and I'm not gonna call out their name just in case, but they were like, "Hey, is it time for a regime change in coaching?" Um, and I had that question from a few people. Believe it or not, like I know some people listen are probably like, no, he's just making that up as an out. No, I seriously did. Um, you guys feel free to have your feelings on this. Me personally, I think no. I don't know that a coaching change at this point is going to get us in a better spot mid-season. Um, a lot of these guys were brought in by Darren Powell, and they played for him in the past. He's been working with them for several months. I don't know of anybody that could just swoop right in mid-season, pick up, and immediately flip the switch and make this team have chemistry. Um, it's not like we're having a couple tactical errors here and there. It runs a little bit deeper than that. So I'm going to say no, that a coaching change at this point is not really going to be needed. But I don't know. You guys might feel differently.
I do agree with you that a coaching change right now would be a bad idea. I think that would be very short-sighted. I think you need to like come up with a plan long term and allow something to grow. But I do think the questions that we are having should be directly pointed at our coach right now. Like the results speak for themselves, and those questions should be answered by the coach.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the coaching, especially at soccer, it's such a long. I mean, it takes so much time to implement, like not only your system, but just your methodology, and not only that, but you're coming into a club that has its own, set of. They've already kind of established some of these. This is how our club's going to operate top to bottom right now. Obviously, Lexington's still very new, so it's not like, you're coming into a club that's decades old. But to me, it's, yeah, I mean, you look at it one of two ways. If it's a results thing, just looking at the scoreboards, to me, that's not. It would be foolish to make a change. I mean, if you think you have the guy and the results just aren't there, and soccer is such a finicky game too. I mean, obviously we're nitpicking a lot, but at the end of the day, some of this stuff is just sheer luck, right? Like the way the ball bounces. Now 4-2 defeat, probably not, but a lot of these matches are coin flips every single night. And so if you think you have a guy and the results aren't there, then you keep him and you figure out, you let him work it out in his own way. If you're disappointed in the organization, disappointed in the culture, things like that we might not even see on the outside, I think that's when a team should make a move. So I think it would be short-sighted. I agree with you all, because to me, it's, I feel like it's of course now too with the men's national team, and their coaching position kind of up in the air. To me, it's like if you think you have the guy, but one thing bounced like one way and not the other, but all of a sudden he's not the guy. It doesn't make sense to me. Like you have to be a little bit more rational, and think a
Mhm.
little bit more long term with these coaches.
Exactly. And I think we're kind of at the mercy of a lot of people like being caught in the like Berhalter out storm. And so a lot of people's minds are on like coaching change to get results. And like Berhalter, he's had years to kind of figure things out. So wherever you feel about that, that's whatever. That's neither here nor there. But I will say Powell's not had as long, and this is not a club that he came into that had a set particular identity. I mean, we kind of had one that we built last year with Stocks, and then Nacho Novo takes over. It morphs a little bit more, but it's not like we have a decade's worth of this is who we are. This is kind of how we approach things. This is our style of ball. Here are our players that have been here for 6 years and helped us with what we are, and can tell you or can lead this team to become that again every time we change players. It takes time. It takes time, and I think that as much as it might be that we're kind of all caught up in the frustration of results in league play, I think that Coach Powell deserves time. I think the players deserve time, but I also do think that we deserve results as well. And I think that us finding an identity that we can build up and continue to be like, okay, we're making progress. I think that's what it really is. I think people aren't seeing progress, and I think that's what people want more than anything. Points aside, that's maybe just me, but let's put results of like wins, draw, losses over here. I would be okay if I saw each match, oh, this is what we are, and this is how we're playing, and we're going to continue to hone that. And things are getting a little bit better each time. And yeah, we might have a little bit of a dip because we play a tough opponent or we have an off day, but let's keep going, and let's keep this train running. And I'm not making excuses, but I do think people need to keep in mind as well that we had like a 2-month stretch of away games and random bye weeks, and that can mess with a team a whole lot too. So, coming back and losing to a top 3 team like Omaha that's been scoring like nobody else, I don't know that it's as bad as maybe we're all feeling in the moment with the reaction time that we've had to process it. But it needs to be a process for us too, right? It needs to be we're seeing that slow build to where we need to go.
Tyler, you said it very well, but like my worry and my concern is in the identity and like what the tactics are, what's the vision, because I don't really see anything right now. Because like going into the season, I was of the mindset that Darren Powell was like an attack minded, like put the ball on the net guy, but like we don't get many shots off, and like when you look at our heat map from like the last
Yeah.
2 matches, they're just like we're not even in the other side of the field. We're not even
No.
in the opponent's half ever. And like I don't remember, like it's really hard to see when we make passes in
Mm-hmm.
in in the attacking position too. Like it's
Yeah.
so
I mean, you're right.
I want to know what what is our style? Like what is our
Yeah.
what are we doing? Like I honestly, that's just what I want to know. Like
Yeah.
If I knew that we had a goal in mind of like what style of soccer we want to play, but maybe the
Mhm.
results weren't there, I think I would be more comfortable.
Well, and to be fair, I think we've seen a style, but I think it's counterintuitive to the players we brought in. And again, you're not alone in that feeling because I've had a lot of people sending us messages about this as well. A lot of people saying, "Hey, we brought in all these like super attacking, focused players that are really great about tearing up the final third of the field and getting into those dangerous spots." But I've noticed that we're very, very defensive for most games, which is odd. I mean, let's be honest. It is a little odd that our last two games you brought that up were like all the red is in our defensive third, and then the red for where we're at in the attacking third is not there. There's barely any red. There's like a speck, which shows that we're not really getting up there and capitalizing on those areas. So it is a little like it raises some eyebrows. We have all these attacking threats, but we're not really attacking style team. We're more of a defensive style team that's going to sit back and absorb pressure for a really, really long time. And hopefully, take that one little chance. But the problem is when we take those one little chances, it's not like we're efficient with them. We're not finishing it off. And it just feels like, you know, Omaha, for example. Yeah, sure, they might have backed off a little bit because they already dropped 4 on us. But when we made some changes and then we decided we were going to kind of let loose a little bit in the last quarter or so of the match, we were way more dangerous. We were in their face a lot more often, and we got 2 goals for it. So, it begs the question, should we be more attacking minded? Should we be more aggressive consistently? And I might just be very different than other people because in my mind, I don't care if a team scores 5 goals on me. If we score 6 on them, I can live with that. Like I would just I like exciting soccer. I like exciting soccer where you're going to put the other team on their heels. And if they nick one off of you because they find some space where you opened up the field a little bit, but you're still hammering them down, I don't hate that. But I know a lot of people feel differently.
I do. I would
Yeah.
prefer a much cleaner game. I would prefer a much cleaner performance than a 6-5 win.
That's a little exaggeratory. Yeah, I don't know if I would be truly okay with that, but um, I don't know that I'm okay with squeaking out wins. I think that's maybe the way I should put it. I don't like that we're always squeaking out a win, and that's what it kind of feels like, or a draw. It's always like by the skin of our teeth. We're just barely hanging on to get those points. I would really like it to feel like how some of these other teams have experienced this season. Man, we went out there and we won that. Like that was a dominant performance. We went out there, we did what we do. They didn't have an answer for it. We got our points. Let's have a night. All of our wins, while I appreciate them, all of our draws, while I appreciate them, and they've been exciting in the sense of we got points. Um, they've been full of anxiety. I don't think there's been a game this year so far where I felt like, man, we handled that game. Like that was a lights out performance. We locked that other team down, and we came away the better team. It was very much like, oh, whew, thank goodness that's over, and we managed to get what we got. And I think maybe that's where it's kind of come up from. Kyle's quiet over there. He's dreaming about the beach again. He's changing his
I
screensavers.
Yeah, no, I'm flipping back and forth with the FOT mob site, which is like a black background, and it just makes
Mhm.
everything super dark. And then I come back to but anyway, no, it's this is a conversation that I think again a lot of fans just can be nodding along to, and I'm a little bit more in Tyler's camp of let's just find the identity. I don't even care what it is. Let's just have one, right? That just like I mentioned earlier, let's just be good at running the football. Like let's be good at something. And yeah, it's just hasn't happened yet. But there's still, I guess, I'm trying to kind of mentally do the math in my head without actually looking at the schedule to see like how much time actually is left.
I think we got 13 league matches and
Yeah.
3 Jaeger Cup group matches,
Okay. Yeah,
which
and
I
it's
will
looking like
point this out.
it's looking like
Sorry, I
Group
didn't mean
B
to
is going to get the wild card. But what's that?
I was just going to say, I will point out at a league play, we only have 3 more games against top 3 teams. I will say that if that's
Okay.
a silver lining I can provide. But anyway.
So our record can be chalked up to the schedule then.
Could be
Yeah,
could be tough
could
schedule
be.
to start things out. I don't know.
Yeah, could be. You always
Um,
got to look at the schedule, but no, I'm I'm like you, Tyler. I think I'm always an optimist, and especially with teams that I cheer for, and it's never too late. I think we're going to get to the point where I know we talked a lot panic button early on in the season. Mine, I think now is just off the screen here, so it's very close. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like I'm going to wait to press it, to the last possible second.
I've got a panic button over here, and then I've got a glass of Jaeger over here.
Yeah,
We'll see which one I lift first. That's kind of the mode we're in now. Um, and we talked a lot about past players and their contributions and kind of our feelings on chemistry and everything. I did have somebody ask us if we feel like there was a player that we thought should have been kept that could have been a difference maker for our situation this year that could have maybe turned the tides. Um, and obviously it's not going to ever be one player comes in and single handedly fixes everything unless you're signing Lionel Messi, which I mean, maybe, can we maybe do that? Maybe do that. I don't care if he only plays one game every 3 months. That one game is going to be a banger. But I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody for you guys that you feel like, man, if we kept this one person, maybe they could have at least helped us in this area, and maybe we'd see something a little bit more cohesive or effective.
yeah, mine's easy. Mine's Charlie Mitchell. I mean, I think that was my preseason pick for who might come back to haunt us. And I know he's not always in favor in the 11 for one knocks, and has come off the bench a few matches as well. But to me, it's about all the things we've talked about with like culture and leadership. And I've never really been around someone in all my years in athletics who was just kind of that natural born leader the way he was. And I think that um, that's a piece that's missing, tremendously from this squad. So whether he was in the 11 or in the 18 or in street clothes on the sideline, I think he'd be helping this club kind of through the next get through some of these rocky phases, and maybe they wouldn't have occurred at all with a voice like his there at the beginning. But he'd be my pick. And then also on the pitch, I think in one of the questions, I think was like pick an ideal lineup, and I was kind of going through the lineup, and you know I've kind of called out the midfield earlier in this episode of like that seems to be where like the most inconsistency is. Um, and Caputo's been fantastic. Mane, when he gets a chance, has been great, but that kind of holding midfield position doesn't have a lot of depth for Lexington, and
Yeah.
a lot of options and flexibility. So even from that respect, I think as a six, he could come in and help whether he's starting or off the bench. But either way, I think his voice would be tremendous for this club.
Yeah. No, I like that pick. For me, I feel like I like the Charlie pick. I kind of was wavering between him and Don. Him and Don were the two that I was wavering between, and it was kind of like the same thing you had mentioned. It just seems like the composure and experience that they both have and their presence on the field, the way you could always see them talking to other players and being like, hey, we're still in this. Hey, I need your head in the game. Here, we're needing to do this. Here's what we're going to do right now. And they both had really great skills on top of it all. It like hurts my feelings to see Don not playing somewhere this year and Charlie being on the bench for Knoxville, whenever I would love to have either one of them there is like that voice in the midfield. And again, this isn't a knock at any players that play in the midfield. But I think that it's something to be said when you have a voice at each phase of the field that can help you keep that composure. It's not all about like, okay, who has like 91 rated dribbling skills, who has like a 92 shot. Like you need people that just have those intangibles that can help the tangibles stay cohesive and working and everybody's minds right and in the game. And I feel like Charlie and Dom were those players for us last year in a lot of instances, at least in the midfield perspective. So I kind of miss them. And, Don, again, he's my age, never lost a step. I always would look at him and I'm like, geez, why am I me? And you're over here like killing it. And so I feel like we kind of miss him a little bit. Dylan?
Yeah, so I agree. Don is my answer. Bald king, bald icon, Don. Um,
The bald habit.
last season, I was, I had so many ringing endorsements for him. He was Mr. Consistent, and I think we really need a veteran midfield presence right now. I think that is where a lot of the issues lie. Just getting the ball in that next phase. So we can get it into the attacking phase. Like we're barely getting it to that midfield phase. Um, I'm going to get whiplash because I've been nodding my head along so much to everything you guys have been saying. I feel like we're just all on the same page and we just completely agree at what's going on.
Yeah, to me that like if you were around the team last year specifically, and just my last like point on Charlie is his like ability to vocalize, like Tyler you mentioned, like the only person that talked more than Stocks to the team last year was Charlie. Like
Absolutely.
there's a reason he was the captain from day one, on a squad
Yeah.
that was brand new, squad that had some local talent, a squad that had a lot of talented players, probably even higher profile players, but there's just something that Charlie brought that this team feels like it's lacking. And it's I don't know if it exists somewhere, and we're waiting for it to kind of bubble up in the form of an unknown leader. But it's first week of July, and we're still kind of waiting. So, yeah, I think either one of those players though would at least kind of bring that consistency kind of on and off the pitch.
Maybe Pila.
So what you're telling me is,
Love Pila. He was my second choice.
oh yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one too. He was
My
he was
guys, my
nasty.
guys doing beach workouts. I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys on Insta, man.
Oh
He's
yeah,
killing it.
yeah. I'm always seeing his stuff.
Yeah, what's he
I was
up
like, come
to?
back, Pila.
He was my
Just
favorite.
training like a beast.
He's got a soft,
I
still
don't know.
shirt still tucked in. Got a soft spot for Pila. He's my guy.
Just for you, man.
Yeah, I had to bring him up for you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
my number two. It was close.
Basically, what I'm hearing is our midfield needs either a bald dude or a dude with immaculate hair. We need one of those two in there, and then everything will improve. It's the story of two spectrums of hair,
And some
and
of it,
then we'll be good.
but like on an actual sense of like the game of soccer, some of it's just ball winning too and
Yeah.
maintaining possession. Like
Yes.
I feel like our
Yeah.
team is consistently
Losing the ball.
losing the ball. Like it's
Yeah.
the ability to win and keep the ball would be, it's just one of those like the connective piece of that midfield is not there. It's not happening,
Yeah.
and there are flashes of brilliance, and I think that goes back to our point of a lot of talent. But even
Hmm.
the high points this season, I think you could point to like a flash of brilliance from a very talented player versus like a team effort in X, Y, or Z happening.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Well, that kind of like leads us into a question that was tagged on to this as well. So, we were asked to think about potential lineup, like what lineup we think we would want to see, because we talked a whole lot about consistency of lineup being a little bit all over the place, formations kind of being back and forth. And so somebody put it on us, for better or worse, to try and figure out, okay, like what type of lineup situation would we put out there?
I can
Who wants to
start.
start? You want to do that? Okay.
Yeah. So I'll keep them all in goal, and then my left back will be Jorge, and then I'll have Fox next to him, and then Modesto to his right, and then Chris Lou Young as the right back, and then I'll do a two center defensive midfielders of Abel Caputo and Pierre Mane. And then on the left wing, I'm going to do Nico Brown. And then in the attacking midfield position, Yannick, and then Tate on the right. And then Atez as the striker position. And this is a 4-2-3-1 formation. That's what I would pick. Tyler, what about you?
Okay, I kind of did a little bit of like a 3-4-3 situation here, three at the back. So Knight would be in goal, of course, right? Then Modesto would be kind of like our central center back, And then on his left would be Jorge. On the right, I have Fox. So have him back in the lineup. I have Caputo as our 6 ahead of them. At left midfield, I put Tate. Right, I got Nico. And then I've got Yannick as our cam, essentially. Then as far as like wingers, I pretty much have like Diouf as our left winger. And then we got Liotti as our right and Cam Lancaster up top as our pure striker. That's kind of what I ended up envisioning for this. I don't know. I just feel like this would be a really cool look if we did it. I feel like having somebody like Jorge and Tate. I know I put 2 quality crossers on the same side, but then if you think about people like Nico and you've got Azad both on the right making those runs up, just imagine crosses raining from Jorge and Tate, either one. They're little interchangeable, play with each other, send it over into them. Obviously Ates can do his thing. He's got plenty of good footwork. Yannick as well. Abel's done really well for us this year. So that's kind of what I envisioned. Kyle, what you got, man?
Yes, mine's a little unconventional, I would say. It's kind of like a 3-4-1-2, so kind of a 3-4-3-ish, like you mentioned, but
inverted from mine.
What's that?
Kind of like inverted from mine up top.
Yeah,
somebody central and high up. They're central and a little bit further back.
Yeah, so and with basically 2 forwards in this, so I would have same back 3 and Jorge, Mendez, and Fox. I would kind of mirror what Dylan did and have 2 central midfielders of Mane and Caputo, and it would put a lot of pressure on those 2. Like this type of lineup would just put a tremendous amount of pressure on those 2, both defensively and just in possession. But and also the lack of depth, they would get their workouts in. But I would have Mane and Caputo midfield, left on the left wing, or I guess I should say left midfield. I'd have Nico. I had Tate on the right, so again, kind of mirroring what Dylan had, flipping, I think, what you had, Tyler, and Yannick at the central attacking midfield, and then I'd have a Tess and Cam up top. So it was like dual striker. To me, it's just it puts some of the more electric players in the positions to allow them to do electric things. Again, especially in the attacking third, it would put a lot of stress on Mane and Caputo. But I think Tate would have no issue with this type of role. Nico would maybe be asked to do a little bit too much defensively, but again, this is, to me, it's putting making some of the cuts, like players to not put out there, was tough, which I guess is a good problem to have. But to me, it's putting 11 players out there that can make some things happen. And like I said, this would require quite a bit of effort from those midfielders, but that's what I came up with.
Yeah, you make a good point, man. Whenever I was trying to do this, when we were asked what we would set up, it's hard. It's hard trying to decide. It's no joke being an actual head coach and being in that position of being like, okay, who am I going to put out there? And of course, they have way more information, more data, more experience with them through trainings. All week they know who's going to do what with who and all of that. And our data is much more limited. But yeah, a lot of mine was just how have they done for us in the past, and what are the vibes like between those players when they're out there on the field. And I feel like vibes are an underrated stat. You need good vibes between your players. Like you
1,000%.
just do. You just do. And I feel like, it's not necessarily perfect. It's not like, I feel like this would be the only lineup choice, but it is funny that we all kind of came up with something similar. And believe it or not, none of us really, converse with one another about what we would for sure do. So, a lot of these are interchangeable, and I'm not saying this is the winning formula. I'm no certified coach. I coach middle school, and that's it. Way different game at that level. But I think it'd be kind of cool to see. And I think a lot of these players, and even the players we didn't select, they have a lot of talent. And like for instance, I had trouble leaving off like Uche. I think Uche has been a nice surprise for us, late to join us, and I feel like he's been pretty solid. It's tough. It's a good problem to have. When you have depth, in almost every position except for maybe like you mentioned, Kyle, that holding midfield section. There's not a ton of depth there for a true holding midfielder. We, essentially have two options, and that's kind of it. When we talk about like pure, you're basically a six, and even Mane, I don't know if I'd even say he's a pure six. That he can turn it into a different gear, and he can
Yeah.
be more like an eight. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's what I would go with. And this bleeds into another question we haven't gotten to, but all these questions kind of like mesh together. Somebody asked us what should be our style. What should we do to kind of amend this? And I think that kind of pairs nicely with us coming up with these possible formations, because I think looking at each of our three formations we came up with, I think maybe there's a consensus that being a little bit more attacking minded is there. Would
Yeah.
you agree?
Yeah, I don't think we have the size to play like a big, like vertical, like over the top kind of
Mm-mm.
offense. I don't think we can make crosses into the box. I think we got to make a lot of plays on the ground. But I think like where we do make crosses is where Jorge and Tate can come in, and especially on free kick chances. I really like both of them for free kick
Yeah.
chances. Um, I really like the style of a false nine, and I think Altez is very capable of doing that with his pass
Yeah.
play, and then adding in Yannick to that as well. If Yannick's kind of like a shadow striker, he's very very good. That's like a huge missing part of our team. Like I kind of feel like we're supposed to be built all around him for some reason, but he's just not there. But when he's on the field, like things happen,
Yeah.
and it's just crazy. So I really think he's got to be involved a lot more. And yeah, Pierre is not a true six, but I do think he kind of plays that,
Yeah. Yeah.
six
You
to
can.
eight range a little bit, right? And, I think he could fill in that, Tyler, you're talking about each piece of the field. Well, you put Caputo at one part, and then Mane is just a little further up than him, and
Mhm.
then Yannick's right there behind, further up than him, and then you got Tate and Nico who, can make things happen.
Mhm.
I feel like my lineup is just players who can make things happen on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of where we're at with this. And you make a good point about sometimes we go up against these really, really big teams that have some gigantic players, like Omaha. I was surprised by how big all their players were, and it gets tough. But I feel like we do have a lot of like technically sound players that can make that stuff happen on the ground. It's just a matter of doing it. And if they can, oh, it would be spicy. Like, I mean, even think about Nico's goal. That was a lot of like quick little tiki-taka stuff going on there, and then boom, you have a goal out of it. And so if we had that chemistry all the time where we're just like taking it to task on these other teams, that stuff would work. And I think we have the players with the skills to do it. It's just a matter of them realizing like, okay, you're going to do this. I'm going to do this. Here's how we connect. And, making that come to fruition, you know? But I don't know. We'll see.
I'll go ahead and send these to Darren. Just
Yes. Yeah.
okay.
And then that way you can put them in the shredder.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I'm sure he loves hearing from from podcasters. Like,
yes.
here's what we think. But
And he's like, well, let me just go ahead and throw out my, decades of experience.
yeah,
I'll
Yeah.
just listen to what these dudes say. Yeah. Again,
you know
just
what's interesting, and I got a bit of deja vu because I couldn't remember if I had brought this up before or like found this, and maybe I have. So stop me if I have. But I was kind of looking up where some of these players have had like their most success, and part of this was a Tate Nico conversation of
mhm,
like they've both flipped sides quite a bit, and it's trying to figure
yeah,
out like where they excel from. It seems like both of them play up the right side a little bit more, like have more success. But in all of our lineups, it looks like we've kind of had them on either side. But I was looking up where Leality kind of had his greatest success, and it came. It's been a few. I guess it's been a few years back when he played for Tormenta,
mhm,
um, and so that would be 2021, I believe. And I was and his one of his last games there, he had a hat trick against Fort
mm,
Lauderdale,
mhm,
and it was a 4-4 draw. Tormenta against Fort Lauderdale, coached by Darren Powell,
yeah,
and Mendez had a goal in that game too for Lauderdale. Um, The match before that, Tormenta also played Lauderdale. I guess they played him 2 matches in a row, and Leotti had a goal in that one as well. So I think there's a reason why some of these coaches bring these players in. It's like, okay, either I've had experience, coaching this guy, or they've absolutely torched me. And so I feel like Leotti is one that, when healthy, we've seen some really brilliant flashes from. It's just, I guess he's kind of just like the rest of the team in general, is just trying to get a full sample size, right? Like a consistent, let's see it consistently. So anyway, just a little fun fact that, again, I was looking that up and I'm like, I feel like I've maybe brought that up before, but
No, you haven't. But it's a good point because I talk a lot of soccer with people across the league of various areas, like content creators. We've even had a couple conversations with coaches and stuff. And Leotti is somebody that's highly rated by a lot of people out there, and it's hard not to think that at some point he's really going to fire up. It's just a matter of, like you mentioned, finding all these pieces and putting them together. And now he seems healthy, which is good because that was an issue for a little bit. Now he seems healthy, and hopefully more consistent playing time will start to reap those benefits because, I think he's a really scary player. He's a really great attacker that can press defenses pretty hard. And he's very physical, which is good because, Dylan, you brought it up. Unfortunately, Khalid's off in Miami, and he was kind of like our physical forward. He was like our guy he's going to get up there, and it doesn't matter if you have a bunch of 6'5" dudes. He's coming up there too, and he's got the muscle to handle business. But I think Leotti kind of has that skill set, despite him not maybe being quite as towering as Khalid. I think he's kind of a stout dude that can, hold his own in those areas.
If I'm being honest, like I have not been impressed with Leotti at all, and I really am not a fan of his style of play so far. I think he's been playing a pretty selfish game when he can pass the ball a lot, and I think he gets rid of the ball so easily. Like he just runs into players. I think he's playing a pretty predictable game right now. So I just really need to see a lot more from him specifically if he's going to be starting at the striker position. Like it's a big deal to me. Being a striker is a big deal, and I think he's taking it lightly.
And I think to kind of maybe counter that a little bit too. You
brought please.
No, you're good.
That's what
you're
this
good,
is for.
Yeah, like sometimes we end up with just one person kind of floating satellite style in the attacking third. And so I think a lot of it also comes from that, like when your help is coming kind of late, and you're kind of up there with the ball by yourself, you do sometimes get tunnel vision. It's like, all right, I got to do this myself, because if I sit there and look over my shoulder and see who's coming, they're going to pickpocket you all day. So I think he's maybe been at the end of that too.
To my counter, to that, I've seen other players take that position and play differently and try to make things happen with teammates. Specifically Lancaster, specifically Khalid, trying to make sure to hold the ball and maybe, try to make a pass, at least try to do that. That's
it does feel like Lexington leads the league in like 1-on-3. We're like, like you set up these, you're supposed to kind of set up a lot of these scenarios to give yourself a man advantage, right? Whether it's a central defender filling space by dribbling up and creating that advantage. Like it seems like a lot of times Lexington is like in these, these small-sided games, what game within the game on the pitch, it's like, oh, we got a 1 versus 3. Awesome. Like it's about getting numbers up and having support.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we really need to improve upon, because, we have pointed out like individual performances and stuff. And I think that that's fair because we've not really put together a lot of super amazing collectives. We've had some collective performances that I'm like, okay, I see the vision. I see where we're going with some of this, but
by the way, I think Lexington led the league in Players of the Week last year too.
Yeah,
for what it's worth. So
yeah, and Save of the Week. I think that it becomes easy to find fault with individual players when we're playing like a bunch of individuals. And so I think maybe that's a message to a lot of the players like, hey, if we can figure out how to play more like a team and make this a cohesive thing, win as a team, lose as a team, draw as a team, maybe that's the route to go, and we have a lot of great talent. It's just finding ways to get that all put together, and hopefully we can do that. Hopefully everybody can kind of come into sync, and we won't see so many of those issues that pop up here and there. But you never know. It is what it is. Guys, this has been a super long episode. This should definitely get people through 2 weeks until they see us again, because it'll probably take you 2 weeks to listen. It was a lot of venting, and one thing I don't want anybody once again to take this as just a let's take that whole approach of bully the team, bully the coaches, make them feel like, man, we suck. What are we doing? This is all coming from a place of love. And, like I said, we addressed a lot of fellow fan questions tonight. Everybody's kind of having the same questions, and we gotta go after it. That's part of this, as much as I like to be positive all the time and I like to err on the side of everything will be okay and everything is okay. We got to call a spade sometimes, right? It's, whatever the situation might be, it is what it is. And in this case, there's a little bit of struggles going on, but we can get it right. There's time left. There's league play wise 39 points left for us to capture. I'm not saying that getting all 39 of those points is going to happen. That's a tall task, but there's a lot of points left for us there. Jaeger Cup, we have 3 more matches in group play. With us sitting at the top of the table right now, that is definitely doable to get out of group play and move on to the next round. So there's hope there. I do want to point out yet again, if there was no such thing as Jaeger Cup, we would be in 8th, which this year is a playoff position. And it's not like 8th, by a dozen points between us and number 7. It would actually be much closer than you might think. So I think that maybe the split between Jaeger and league play is exacerbating some of the feelings we're having, which rightly so. We can't sit there and say, well, if it was combined, we'd be fine, because it's not. Then that's just the nature of the beast. It's not. And so we've got a lot of work to do. And luckily we've got more home matches on the slate finally after, it felt like our team was exiled for ever and ever and ever. And it just kind of felt like the off season because they were gone so long. But now they're back. They're at home, kind of shaking the rust off from all the travel whenever they came back against Omaha. But, hopefully we'll see them have their bearings these next few games. We can go out, support, hopefully start racking up some wins. We got Tormenta coming up this coming weekend. Tormenta, obviously a team that's, handed us one of our more embarrassing defeats in our club history. But they're not a team that's unbeatable, to be honest. They're not exactly, taking teams to task. I think they're averaging a point a match, and they've had 12 matches. So definitely a doable win for us. We can go out there, hopefully have our minds right. Hopefully everybody healthy. Everybody knows the plan. Everybody knows the objective, knows to stay the course. And we'll have much better things to talk about next time. But, again, don't let this defeat anybody out there listening. Take this as a challenge, a challenge that, we could do better as a team. And that includes, supporting them the right way, making sure that we're behind them. And that doesn't mean you have to sugarcoat. It doesn't mean you have to. You can say how you really feel, because I guarantee you the coaches and the players already know these things to be true. They know when they mess up. They know whenever it's not been a good game. They know when it's not been a good performance. They know whenever they maybe not, handled the task like they could have or would have liked to. But at the same time, they're people. They can get it right. They can get their head right. And our job is to, tell them how we feel, but support them at the same time. Maybe sometimes it's just tough love. Maybe this is our tough love episode, and I'm feeling hopeful and we can do this. So I don't know, Dylan, Kyle, you have any final thoughts before we let everybody take a breather from this?
Yeah, I think I should clear the air a little bit. I feel like I was probably the most overly negative, between the three of us. So, I obviously do it because I love the team so much. I put a lot of my effort into them, when I go to the games and, I root for them and, I just want to be proud of the product on the field.
Yeah.
And, I want them to be proud of the product on the field as well. I
Yeah.
think I even want that more. I want them to play for the badge. I want to have an identity. I want to be I want to see something to be proud of. It's fun going to the games. I have a good time. I like the guys on the team. I love the returning players. I want to give Nico a huge shout out again. I did it already once in the episode, but he has been very consistent. Really like him putting his all into it, getting the goals for us, grinding it out. So, as negative as I was this episode, I'm also very positive about our chances and some of our guys as well. And I just love them. I just love the whole thing. I think people can tell from my Philly fandom. That's just how I show I'm passionate.
Well, let's just hope it ends there and you don't start throwing batteries or anything, that you
Whoa,
Philly
whoa,
that you Philadelphia people
whoa.
allegedly are known for. No, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, we're in a fortunate position. We have professional soccer in our city, and we get to, live and die with these wins and losses. That at the end of the day, I mean, it's a game, and I think that's just a really cool thing that we get to experience. And so I hope, it doesn't become a negative part of a fan's life. Sometimes I wear wins and losses too closely on my wife will tell you probably let it affect me a little bit too much for various sports. And I think that's good. I think that's healthy. It's good to have those type of relationships with your teams, but at the same time, kind of sit back and realize hey, it is a game at the end of the day, and it's for entertainment, and it's to put a smile on people's faces. So win or lose, I think our guys are going out there and at least giving their all, and it does help to win, but at the end of the day, we're just I think lucky to be able to have this kind of team to rally around. And so hopefully the results, pick up a little bit. But at the same time, I'm just happy that we get this opportunity to, chat about the guys and eventually the gals at the Super League. And
Yeah.
it's exciting right now to be a fan of Lexington. And like I said, I don't always take the losses the best from an emotional standpoint, but um, I think that's a little healthy too, just to have some passion, and I think it's good to have some passion.
I
Yeah,
agree.
while you're, going on your rant, Kyle, I put in our group text, a screenshot, and I think it just kind of encapsulates how we all feel. It's you got to be an effing idiot to be a sports fan, LMAO, and that's kind of what Kyle was saying.
Yeah,
You wear the wins and losses on your sleeve,
none of it
and
matters. I get that,
yeah, it,
but
it
it
doesn't.
all
It,
matters.
it really doesn't. But we put so much into it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're
you
so
know,
dumb for it.
so
Yes.
dumb.
Yes.
It's so
Yes.
stupid.
Sometimes I do
It,
wish, I have relatives, friends, whatever, who just have they don't care about sports, they don't care, and it's just this bliss that they live in. I'm like, you
what a
must just be
charmed
happy.
life.
You
Yeah,
must be happy
yeah,
all the time. You have no worries.
Right. So what we're really trying to say here is this is kind of like family member vibes, right? In this moment we might be a little harsh, but we'll never let anybody else be. You better believe if another fam comes for you, we're going to defend you to the bitter end. And it's not a matter of hey, this is a bummer, leave our team, get lost, get out of our city, never ever. It's a matter of we want you to be successful, because we love this team, and we love that each player's chosen to play for us. We always say that. At the end of the day, all the players chose to come here just as much as we chose them, they chose us, and we just want success for everybody. We want everybody to be feeling good vibes. And it doesn't always just hinge on wins. Obviously, wins do matter in sports world, right? But it's also, beyond that too. So good vibes. We'll get back. We'll get back right. Maybe this is the start of our undefeated streak. After this, we needed to take a wallop to come back on Saturday and then, pay it forward to Tormenta and then just carry on from there. That's my dream anyway right now. But it was a long episode. If you hung in this long, it might have taken you 5 days to listen. You might have had to take some breathers and calm down, do like some centering of your Wu-Jai, some yoga or something. I don't know, whatever it is, to get sorted after this. But we'll see you guys next time with hopefully good news. Maybe some wins to chat about. That'd be amazing. Maybe some extra Super League stuff to talk about. But just keep supporting, guys. Just keep going out there for the team. Support them however you can. Don't let it get you into a bad space. I've noticed some people getting into bad spaces about the team, to the point where they resent positivity. Don't do that. Don't be that person that you get so caught up in sports fandom that you become some weird curmudgeon in the mountains, just angry about everything.
Hiding behind a computer.
Yeah. Like just support. Vent your feelings, but be there for the guys at the end of the day.
And if you don't want to support, then you don't have to.
Yeah, you
Just
don't.
go away.
There's
Yeah.
plenty of other teams.
That's fine
Yep.
too.
Yeah, it's fine too. Because I just want fans that are going to be behind our team no matter what, thick and thin. And, because I know when it comes to us three, we're going to be there. It doesn't matter if we finish 12th and then lose the Jaeger Cup. We're still going to be doing this. We're still going to be putting out things. We're still going to do player of the match. We're still going to talk to the players. We're still going to,
Dylan's still
do
going to
whatever we
embarrass his
can.
family at the matches. Like, it's going to happen.
It's true.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
Yep, that's right.
They better get on board, honestly. Like,
yeah. Tell them they figure it out.
welcome to the family.
For the sake of my marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Philly and you should already be bleeding over into them at this point. Like,
Right.
they should be Philly by association. So,
It's true.
they need to up it a little bit. Start climbing the light post at Toyota Stadium.
What are
Shaking
you
them around.
doing out there? Am I right?
Right? All right.
Start greasing the poles at the same so I can't climb them.
Oh, man. Now you just put Georgetown on high alert. Like, who's this Dylan guy? Gotta Crisco the poles real quick and make sure that he doesn't do anything crazy. Oh, all right, everybody. Thank you for hanging in for this long episode. And hopefully we all found a little bit of catharsis through this vent session. And then, we got that out of our chest. It's therapeutic. Now we can all go back to sunshine, rainbow land of come on, you greens, LSC, bleed until you die. That's where we want to be. But until the next episode, thanks again, everybody. We'll catch you at a game.